Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku became famous too early. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The clock on the immense, faux city wall ticked down, each second a hammer blow to the fragile glass of Izuku Midoriya's sanity. 2 minutes. 2 minutes remaining in the UA entrance exam, and Izuku Midoriya had accomplished absolutely nothing. The air in Battle Center B was thick with the smell of ozone, pulverized concrete, and the exhaust of giant robots. Around him, the other examinees were a blur of motion and color, quirks firing off like fireworks. There was the boy with the engine legs, tearing through 2 pointers with mechanical precision. There was the girl with the gravity quirk, floating debris with effortless grace. Even the smaller, seemingly less combat-oriented students were racking up points. And then there was Izuku. He stood in the middle of a cratered street, his red sneakers scuffed, his green tracksuit damp with sweat that had nothing to do with exertion and everything to do with terror. He was paralyzed. The one for all power, the sacred torch passed down from All Might himself only hours ago, sat in the pit of his stomach like a lead weight. He didn't know how to turn it on. He didn't know if it would turn on. I'm going to fail, the thought spiraled, frantic and loud. After 10 months of hell on the beach. After eating that hair. After All Might looked me in the eye and told me I could be a hero, I'm going to end up with 0 points. The ground began to shake. It wasn't the rhythmic thumping of the 3-pointers or the skittering of the 1-pointers. This was a seismic event. The asphalt rippled beneath Izuku's feet, throwing him off balance. A shadow fell over the city block, a shadow so large it seemed to swallow the afternoon sun. From the cloud of dust at the end of the main thoroughfare, it rose. The 0-pointer. It was less a robot and more a moving monument to excess. Its green chassis scraped against the skyscrapers on either side of the street, shattering windows and crumbling brickwork just by existing. Its singular red eye glowed with the indifference of a god. That's huge. Someone screamed. Run! It's the 0-pointer. There's no point in fighting it. The herd mentality took over instantly. The examinees, moments ago competitors, became a unified wave of retreat. They sprinted past Izuku, their eyes wide with self-preservation. Get out of the way, kid! You'll get crushed! Izuku's legs trembled. His instincts, honed by a lifetime of being the victim, told him to run. Move, Deku. Move or die. He turned to flee. He took 1 step. Oh wow! The sound was faint, buried under the roar of collapsing infrastructure and the mechanical groan of the Titan, but Izuku heard it. He froze. 50 meters away, near the base of the advancing behemoth, the girl with the round face, the nice one who had stopped him from tripping at the gates, was pinned. A massive slab of concrete had pinned her leg. She was struggling, her face a mask of pain and panic, as the 0-pointer's colossal tread loomed closer. It wasn't slowing down. It was going to crush her. The fear in Izuku's chest didn't vanish. It was simply incinerated by something hotter. Thinking stopped. Acting began. Izuku didn't remember starting to run. One moment he was paralyzed. The next, he was sprinting toward the death machine, the gravel crunching violently under his shoes. Clench your buttocks, and scream from the depths of your heart. The memory of All Might's instructions flashed through his mind. Izuku leaped. It was a jump that defied physics, fueled by a power he hadn't yet earned. The wind whipped tears from his eyes as he ascended, soaring past the 2nd story, the 3rd, the 4th. He was a green bullet shot straight at the face of the mechanical giant. His right arm pulled back. He could feel the energy, red, crackling, and overwhelming, surge through his veins. It was too much. It was a river trying to force its way through a straw. He felt the muscles in his arm tense to the point of tearing. Smash! He connected with the robot's faceplate. The impact was deafening. It wasn't a metallic clang, it was a sonic boom. The air pressure alone blew the glass out of every window in a 3-block radius. The metal of the 0-pointer didn't just dent, it crumpled, folding inward like wet cardboard. The sheer kinetic force traveled through the robot's body, blowing out the back of its head and sending a shockwave rippling through the artificial city. The massive machine began to tip backward, defeated by a single punch. Suspended in the air, time seemed to slow for Izuku. He looked at his arm. It was purple. Twisted. Broken in ways that made his stomach turn. The pain hadn't hit yet. Adrenaline was a powerful anesthetic, but he knew it was coming. I did it, he thought, a hysterical laugh bubbling in his chest. I used it. Then, gravity reclaimed him. He began to fall, high above Battle Center B, hovering silently at an altitude of 2,000 feet. A small, black quadcopter fought against the turbulence caused by the shockwave. It wasn't a UA security drone. It lacked the school's crest and the safety limiters. This was a custom-built rig, equipped with a long-range, 8K telephoto lens and a high-gain directional microphone. It belonged to a user known on the dark corners of the Hero Net as Hero Watcher 77. The operator, sitting in a cramped van 3 miles away from the UA barrier, stared at his monitors, his mouth agate. Holy! The blogger whispered, his fingers hovering over his keyboard. Did you see that? Did the stream catch that? The bitrate fluctuated, but the connection held. The footage was pristine. It captured the run. It captured the jump. It captured the punch that looked less like a quirk and more like a tactical airstrike. Usually, UA scrambled signals during the exam. But Hero Watcher 77 had found a frequency backdoor, a vulnerability in the updated security grid that Nisa hadn't patched yet. He had intended to leak footage of the famous Endeavor's sun, or maybe catch a glimpse of some flashy new elemental quirks. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected a plain-looking kid with messy green hair to decapitate a skyscraper-sized robot in one hit. The blogger's heart raced. This was the scoop of the decade. This was the debut of the next big thing. Upload, he muttered, slamming the enter key. Upload to HeroTube. Twitter. The forums. Everywhere. He titled the video quickly, his hands shaking. 4K raw unknown student one-shots UA 0-pointer. Stronger than All Might? Within 3 seconds the video was live. Within 30 seconds it had 1,000 views. Within a minute the algorithm caught fire. The faculty observation room. That was reckless, Aizawa Shota muttered, his eyes narrowed as he watched the monitors. He has zero control. He shattered his own arm and legs just to attack a target worth 0 points. But it was magnificent. Midnight countered, fanning herself. The spirit of self-sacrifice. He didn't do it for points, Eraser. He did it to save the girl. That is the essence of a hero. It doesn't matter if he has the heart of a hero if his body can't survive the job, Aizawa shot back. He's a liability. In the back of the room, Toshinori Yagi, in his skeletal, true form, clutched the fabric of his oversized yellow suit. His heart was hammering against his ribs. Izuku, my boy, you went too far. He was proud. Immensely proud. But he was also terrified. He had hoped Izuku would take down a few 2-pointers, maybe a 3-pointer. He wanted Izuku to pass quietly, to learn control within the safety of the school before the world took notice. But Izuku hadn't just opened the door to Hero Society. He had kicked it off its hinges. Principal Nizu, Cementos spoke up, looking at a tablet. We have a problem. Nizu, the Chimera principal, paused his teacup halfway to his mouth. Oh? Is it the damage to the city? We have a budget for that. No, Cementos said, his voice grave. It's the internet. He tapped a button, and the main screen, which had been showing the retrieval of the unconscious Izuku, switched to a web browser. A video was playing. It was the footage of the punch, but from a high, cinematic angle. It was looping. Smash. 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 Below it, the view count was scrolling so fast the numbers were a blur. Views, 4,502,110. Likes, 890,000. Comments, All Might Fanba 99, WTF is that? Is that All Might's secret kid? Quirk analyst, look at the shockwave. That's not an enhancer quirk, that's a displacement of air pressure. The only person on record with that output is the number 1. Hero Truth. UA is hiding weapons of mass destruction now? That kid looks like he's 14, Bakugo sucks, RIP that robot. Also RIP that kid's arm. Did you see it snap? Gross. A security breach, Nisa said, his tone dropping several degrees. The cheerful principal was gone, replaced by the strategist. Someone had a drone in the airspace. I'll have it hunted down, Snipe said, standing up. It's too late, Midnight whispered, scrolling through her phone. It's trending. The green smash. New symbol. Who is he? It's #1 worldwide. Toshinori felt the blood drain from his face. He had spent years hiding the secrets of One for All. He had carefully cultivated the mystery of his power to protect the users and the peace. Now, in the span of 5 minutes, the entire world was staring at his successor. And somewhere out there, lurking in the shadows of the underground, he was watching too. All for One was watching. Recovery Girl's office. The smell of antiseptic was the first thing to return. Then, the throbbing, dull ache that permeated his entire body. Izuku blinked his eyes open. The ceiling was white. Familiar. You're awake, a gruff, elderly voice said. Izuku turned his head weakly. Recovery Girl was sitting on a stool, marking a clipboard. She looked exhausted. Our Recovery Girl? Izuku croaked. His throat felt dry. The exam. Uraraka-san, is she okay? The girl is fine, Recovery Girl said, hopping off the stool. You, on the other hand, are a mess. Shattered right arm. Shattered legs. Exhaustion. I had to perform surgery before I could even apply my quirk, or your bones would have healed crooked. You drained my energy reserves dry, Sonny. Izuku tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness pushed him back down. I got 0 points, didn't I? Tears began to pool in his eyes. I failed. All Might gave me this power, and I failed him. Young Midoriya. The voice came from the door. Izuku froze. All Might stood there. But he wasn't in his muscle form. He was in his true form, gaunt, sharp-angled, with hollow eyes. He looked more tired than Izuku had ever seen him. All Might! Izuku gasped. I'm so sorry. I couldn't control it. I panicked, and the robot was there, and, quiet, my boy, All Might said, closing the door gently and locking it. He walked over to the bed, his movements heavy. Did I fail? Izuku whispered. The results of the exam aren't for me to disclose yet, All Might said evasively. He pulled a smartphone from his pocket. But we have a more pressing situation. Izuku confused. Situation? All Might turned the screen toward him. It was a video. Izuku watched, horrified, as a high-definition recording of himself played. He saw the desperation on his own face. He saw the jump. He saw the punch. It looked terrifying. From the outside, he didn't look like a hero saving someone. He looked like a bomb going off. What is this? Izuku asked. It's everywhere, All Might said softly. Someone recorded the exam illegally. It's been online for 2 hours. 2 hours? Look at the numbers, Izuku. Izuku squinted. 24 million views. His heart stopped. 24 million? The news stations have picked it up, All Might said, sitting in the chair beside the bed. They are calling you the mystery powerhouse. They are comparing you to me. They are analyzing your bone structure, your hair, your shoes. There are already conspiracy theories that you are a government experiment. Izuku felt like he couldn't breathe. But I'm nobody. I'm just Deku. Not anymore, All Might said grimly. Anonymity is a shield, young Midoriya. It protects you while you learn. It protects your family. That shield has been shattered before you even put on your costume. What does this mean? Izuku asked, his voice trembling. Does everyone know about One for All? Not yet, All Might reassured him quickly. They think it's a strength enhancement quirk. Or telekinesis. But the comparison is there. People are hungry for a new symbol, Izuku, and they have decided, prematurely, that it is you. All Might leaned forward, his skeletal hand resting on Izuku's shoulder. Listen to me. When you leave this room, the world will not treat you like a student. They will treat you like a celebrity. Or a threat. You must be careful. You must not tell anyone about the nature of your quirk. If the media finds out you were quirkless until today, the scrutiny will destroy you. Izuku swallowed hard. The weight of the secret had always been heavy. But now, it felt like the entire world was trying to pry it from his fingers. I understand, Izuku whispered. Rest now, All Might stood up. I have to manage the press. Principal Nizu is not happy. As All Might left, Izuku stared at the white ceiling. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a bug under a magnifying glass, and the sun was starting to burn. Muzurifu General District, the Bakugo residence. Katsuki Bakugo sat on the edge of his bed. His phone screen cracked from where he had gripped it too hard. The video looped again. Smash! The green-haired nerd flew through the air. The punch obliterated the machine. Katsuki's breathing was ragged, hyperventilating with a toxic mix of rage and confusion. Deku, he hissed. For 10 years. For 10 damn years, Deku had been the pebble on the side of the road. The quirkless loser. The bug he could crush with a pop of his palm. Katsuki had been the protagonist. He was the one destined for Yue. He was the one who would surpass All Might. But that video, that power, it wasn't just a little quirk. It wasn't like he could suddenly pull small objects or breathe fire. That was raw, unadulterated devastation. It was stronger than Katsuki's explosions. It was stronger than anything Katsuki had ever seen. He lied, Katsuki whispered, the realization turning his stomach to ice. He was looking down on me the whole time. He remembered every time Deku had followed him. Every time Deku had mumbled notes about heroes. Every time Deku had tried to help him up. It was all an act. Deku had been hiding a nuke in his back pocket, laughing at Katsuki's little explosions. Katsuki scrolled down to the comments. King Explosion. This kid makes the other examinees look like jokes. Hero Watcher. Whoever this green kid is, he's the real deal. The other kids at that exam site are just extras in his movie. Extras, Katsuki choked out. A spark popped in his palm, scorching his bedsheet. I'm not an extra. He threw the phone at the wall. It shattered, embedding itself in the plaster. DKU. He screamed, the sound raw and guttural. You're dead, leaving you a recovery girl discharged him at sunset. She gave him a handful of gummy bears and a stern warning not to use his quirk again until his bones had fully knitted, despite her healing. Izuku walked to the main gate of Yue, his arm in a sling, his body aching. He felt hollow. He should have been agonizing over whether he passed or failed, but the looming dread of the video overshadowed everything. He pulled his hood up. He kept his head down. Maybe it's not that bad, he reasoned. Maybe the video is blurry. Maybe people won't recognize me in street clothes. He stepped out of the UA barrier. There he is! The shout made him jump. Across the street, a group of 5 teenagers were waiting. They had their phones out. It's the Green Bomber. One of them yelled, Hey! Kid! Do the punch! Sign my shirt! Izuku flinched, shrinking into his hoodie. I have to go home. Just one picture. A girl ran across the street, ignoring traffic. She shoved a phone in his face. Smile. You're famous. The flash blinded him. Izuku stumbled back. Please, he stammered. I don't. Is it true you're All Might's son? What's your quirk called? Why were you crying in the video? More people were stopping. Commuters walking home from the station. Cars were slowing down to gawk. The crowd was growing. It wasn't a mob yet, but it was suffocating. They weren't looking at him like a person. They were looking at him like a zoo animal that had just performed a trick. Izuku turned and ran. He didn't use one for all. He couldn't. But he ran with the desperate stamina of the quirkless boy who had spent years running from bullies. He ducked into an alleyway, vaulted a fence, and sprinted through the back streets of Muzurifu, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. Why? Why is this happening? I just wanted to save her. The Midoriya apartment. By the time Izuku reached his apartment complex, the sun had set completely. He was out of breath, his sling damp with sweat. He expected safety. He expected his mom's katsudon. What he found was a siege. 3 news vans were parked illegally on the street below his building. Satellite dishes were extended, aiming toward his balcony. A dozen reporters stood by the entrance, microphones in hand, harassing the neighbors who were trying to get inside. Excuse me, ma'am. Does the boy in 402 have a history of violence? Sir. Have you ever seen the boy lift a car? Izuku hid behind a vending machine across the street, terror gripping him. They found my house. How did they find my house so fast? The internet. Doxing. Facial recognition. It took the collective high mind of the web less than 4 hours to identify Izuku Midoriya from a blurry middle school yearbook photo and cross-reference it with the exam registry. He couldn't go in through the front. Izuku circled around the back of the building. He climbed the fire escape, wincing as the rusty metal vibrated against his sore bones. He reached the second floor, then the third. He shimmied along the ledge to his balcony. The curtains were drawn tight. He tapped on the glass. "Mom?" The curtain whipped open. Inko Midoriya stood there, her eyes swollen and red, a phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. She unlocked the door and yanked him inside, immediately pulling him into a hug that threatened to re-break his ribs. "Izuku!" she sobbed. "Oh, my baby! Are you hurt? I saw the video. I saw you fall." And then the phone started ringing and it won't stop. "I'm okay, Mom. I'm okay," Izuku soothed her, though he was shaking too. The landline rang. It was a shrill, piercing sound. Then Inko's cell phone buzzed on the table. Then the doorbell rang. "Ms. Midoriya! We know he's in there." "A statement for Hero News Network?" a voice shouted through the letterbox. Inko looked at the door, terrified. "I didn't answer. I was too scared. They keep asking if I knew you had a quirk. They keep asking why I hid it." She looked at him, tears streaming down her face. "Izuku, what did you do?" Izuku looked at his mother, the woman who had apologized to him for being quirkless. Now, she was under siege because he wasn't. "I saved someone, Mom," Izuku said, his voice quiet but firm. "I just saved someone. We can't stay here," Inko whispered. Mitsuki called. She said Bakugo is furious. But she offered to let us stay there if we need to hide. But I don't think we can even leave the building. Izuku walked to the window and peeked through the gap in the curtains. Down below, a drone, similar to the one at the exam, buzzed near the window. Izuku yanked the curtains shut. "We just have to wait," Izuku said. "Yue will fix this." All Might said he would handle it. 1 week later, the week that followed was a blur of isolation and digital noise. Izuku didn't leave the apartment. Inko ordered groceries online, but even the delivery drivers tried to peek inside when she opened the door. Izuku spent his time on his computer, a masochistic ritual of scrolling through the narrative that was being built around him. The glass cannon. That was the nickname that stuck. Because the footage showed his arm breaking, the internet had deduced that his quirk was too powerful for his body. Hero thread, the glass cannon is dangerous. If he breaks a bone every time he punches a villain, who pays for the medical bills? Taxpayers? All Might Stan, he's reckless. He destroyed a multimillion-dollar robot for nothing. He's an attention seeker. Deku Defense Squad, he saved that girl. You guys are blind. He's a true hero. The debate raged. He was loved. He was hated. He was analyzed. He received emails from talent agencies. Talent agencies. Not hero agencies. Modeling scouts wanted him. Talk shows wanted him. A company that made calcium supplements wanted him to be their spokesperson. He deleted them all. He sat in his dark room, squeezing a grip strength trainer, staring at his All Might posters. "I haven't even gotten into the school yet," he whispered to the silence. "And I'm already tired." Then, the mail came. Inko slid the envelope under his door. It was heavy. It bore the Yue wax seal. Izuku stared at it for an hour. Usually, this would be the moment of truth. Pass or fail. But the context had changed. He knew he had destroyed the zero-pointer. He knew the world saw his power. But he had 0 villain points. If Yue rejected him, he would be the world's most famous failure. He tore the envelope open. A metal disc slid out onto his desk. A hologram flickered to life. "I am here!" All Might's voice boomed, projecting into the small room. Izuku flinched, instinctively checking the window to make sure no one heard. "Young Midoriya!" The hologram of All Might, in his hero form, leaned into the camera. He looked serious. There was none of the usual jovial bouncing. "The results are in. By written exam, you passed comfortably. But the practical..." All Might paused. "You scored 0 villain points." Izuku's heart sank. "However..." All Might raised a finger. "A hero's job is to save people. How could a hero course reject someone who saves others at the risk of their own life? A video clip played. It was Uraraka, standing before President Mike. She was pleading for them to give her points to Izuku. Izuku teared up. She tried to help me. Rescue points. All Might shouted. A hidden metric. For your selfless action, UA awards you 60 rescue points. Izuku Midoriya, you pass. Izuku let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He sobbed, burying his face in his hands. He did it. He was in. But the hologram didn't end there. There is one more thing, All Might said. The hologram shifted. All Might stopped posing. He looked directly at the lens. I have spoken to the board. Because of the unique circumstances of your public exposure, the school debated rescinding your acceptance. Izuku froze. They fear the media circus, All Might explained. They fear you will be a distraction. They fear the danger you bring to the other students. Izuku gripped the edge of his desk. But I fought for you, All Might said fiercely. I told them that we do not punish heroes for being seen. I told them that if the world is watching you, then we will give them a show they will never forget. We will mold you into a symbol that can withstand that gaze. All Might extended a hand toward the screen. Come, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. But be warned, you are entering the arena not as a student, but as an icon. The world is waiting for you to fall. Prove them wrong. The hologram faded. Izuku sat in the darkness. The silence of the room felt heavier than before. He looked at his hand, the hand that had smashed the robot, the hand that now carried the legacy of One for All. He wasn't just Izuku Midoriya anymore. He was the kid in the video. He was the glass cannon. He was the viral sensation. He stood up and walked to the window. He peered through the curtains at the street below. The news vans were still there. A reporter was doing a stand-up segment under the street lamp. Izuku clenched his fist. The fear was still there, churning in his gut. But beneath it, there was a spark of something else. Something stubborn. I won't fall, he whispered. He turned away from the window and began to pack his bag. Tomorrow was the first day of school. And for Izuku Midoriya, the cameras would never stop rolling. The morning of the first day at UA High School was supposed to be a private milestone. It was supposed to be the nervous trembling of tying a tie, the frantic check of a backpack, and the quiet prayer that one wouldn't trip over the threshold. For Izuku Midoriya, it was a military extraction. At 6:30 a.m., an unmarked black sedan rolled up to the curb of the apartment complex. The driver was a man in a nondescript suit who introduced himself only as an associate of the UA support staff. Keep your head down, Midoriya-san, the driver said, his eyes scanning the perimeter through the rearview mirror. The vultures are early today. Izuku, wearing his crisp gray UA uniform, sat low in the back seat. Through the tinted windows he saw them. A dozen photographers were already camped out on the sidewalk. Some were drinking coffee, checking their lenses. Others were interviewing his neighbors. Yeah, he was always quiet. He saw Mrs. Tanaka from 3F mouthing to a reporter with a fuzzy microphone. Never saw him use a quirk. We thought he was, you know. Izuku gripped the fabric of his trousers. The secret of his quirklessness was already eroding. How long until someone found the medical records? How long until the late bloomer theory fell apart and the government experiment theories took over? As the car pulled away, a few photographers spotted him. Flashes popped like strobe lights. He's moving! Follow that car. Drive, Izuku whispered, shrinking into the upholstery. The ride to UA was a blur of anxiety. Izuku pulled his phone out, then shoved it back into his pocket. He couldn't look. If he looked at Twitter, he would throw up. He knew what they were saying. They were calling him the Golden Boy. They were calling him the Green God. They were placing bets on whether he would become the #1 hero in his freshman year. They didn't know he couldn't even microwave a burrito without risking a fracture. The car stopped at the main gates of UA. The UA barrier was a legendary security system, a steel wall meant to keep villains out. Today, it was barely holding back the press. It looked like a riot. Hundreds of reporters, cameramen, and bloggers were pressed against the censors. We have to go through the side maintenance entrance, the driver grunted, steering the car away from the main chaotic throng. Principal Nizu anticipated this. You can't walk through the front gate, kid. You'd be torn apart. Izuku nodded, feeling a heavy stone of guilt settle in his stomach. I'm already a burden. I haven't even attended a single class, and the school has to reroute traffic for me. Class 1A. The halls of Yui were massive, built to accommodate students with gigantification quirks, but to Izuku, they felt claustrophobic. He navigated the corridors with his head down, flinching every time a student from general studies or support looked his way. That's him, the video guy. He looks smaller in person. I heard he broke the robot just by looking at it. The whispers followed him like a vapor trail. He reached the door. 1A. It was huge. A barrier between the hallway and his future. Izuku stood there, his hand hovering over the handle. Okay. Just breathe. Inside, you're just a student. Just a normal student. You're not the viral video. You're Deku. Just Deku. He slid the door open. The noise in the room cut out instantly. There were 19 other students inside. Some were sitting on desks, some were chatting in groups. But the moment Izuku stepped in, 19 pairs of eyes locked onto him. It wasn't the welcoming atmosphere he had fantasized about. It was the heavy, assessing silence of a courtroom. It's him. The shout came from a boy with red, spiky hair. He jumped up from his seat grinning. Holy crap, it's the zero-pointer guy. I saw the raw footage. You totally wrecked that thing. The tension broke, replaced by a wave of intense curiosity. A girl with pink skin and horns leaned over her desk. Your arm. Is it okay? In the video, it looked like a purple balloon. It's healed, Izuku stammered, clutching his bag strap. Recovery girl is very good. I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. The tall boy with glasses, the one who had scolded him at the entrance exam, marched forward. His movements were stiff, robotic. Midoriya-kun. I must apologize. During the exam, I misjudged you completely. I thought you were merely a distraction, but you discerned the true nature of the test, the rescue points. You are a superior candidate. Ida bowed at a perfect 90-degree angle. Your display of power was the most efficient use of force I have ever witnessed. Please lift your head. Izuku waved his hands frantically. I didn't. You're really popular, huh? A familiar voice. Izuku turned to see Ochako Uraraka standing there, beaming. Uraraka-san, I'm so glad you got in. She pumped her fist. I was worried when I saw your injuries, but then the news started playing your clip nonstop, and I thought, wow, he's really a big deal. Everyone is talking about you. Yeah, Izuku said, his smile weak. Everyone. He scanned the room. While most looked impressed, not everyone was smiling. A boy with half-white, half-red hair sat in the back, staring at Izuku with cold, heterochromatic eyes. He didn't look impressed. He looked analytical, like he was dissecting a puzzle he didn't like. And then, there was the empty desk in front of him. And the desk in front of that. Katsuki Bakugo sat with his feet on the table. He wasn't looking at Izuku. He was looking out the window, his jaw set so tight the muscles bulged. The air around him shimmered with heat. Bakugo hadn't yelled. He hadn't exploded. That was worse. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. The voice came from the floor. The class froze. Lying in a yellow sleeping bag in the doorway was a man who looked more like a homeless insomniac than a teacher. He stood up, shedding the bag, revealing his black attire and the capture scarf around his neck. Shota Aizawa. Eraserhead. His bloodshot eyes swept over the class, cataloging them. Then, his gaze landed on Izuku. It lingered there, heavy and unreadable. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, Aizawa deadpanned. Time is limited. You kids are not rational enough. He walked to the podium, fished a uniform out of his bag, and tossed it. Put these gym clothes on and head to the grounds. We're doing a quirk apprehension test. The class erupted in confusion. A test? What about the ceremony? The guidance counselor? If you want to be heroes, you don't have time for such leisurely events, Aizawa said, turning his back. He paused at the door. And Midoriya. Izuku flinched. Why yes, sir? Try not to destroy the school property. The paparazzi outside are already costing us a fortune in security. I'd hate to bill your mother for a gymnasium. The class went silent. The comment was biting, personal. Izuku felt the heat rise to his cheeks. Yes, sir. The locker room. The atmosphere in the boys' locker room was thick with testosterone and curiosity. As shirts came off and gym uniforms went on, the eyes were back on Izuku. Specifically, they were looking at his body. Thanks to the 10 months of Hell Beach, Izuku was ripped. He wasn't bulky like All Might, but he was lean, corded with functional muscle. But what drew the eye were the scars. Faint, jagged lines on his arms from moving trash, and the fresh, pinkish skin on his right arm and legs where Recovery Girl had accelerated the healing. Man, you are shredded for a plain-looking guy, Eijiro Kirishima noted, slapping his own chest. So, what's the deal? The internet says you have a strength enhancer, but some forums say it's telekinesis because of the air pressure. It's complicated, Izuku muttered, pulling his blue gym shirt on quickly. Complicated? Denki Kaminari leaned against the locker. Dude, you one-shot the 0-pointer. That's All Might level stuff. Are you, like, his secret apprentice or something? Izuku dropped his shoe. Too close. My quirk hurts me when I use it, Izuku deflected. That's why I don't use it much. Glass cannon, Mineta whispered loudly to Zero. That's what they call him online. Huge power, zero durability, TCH. The sound cut through the chatter. Bakugo slammed his locker shut. The metal dented under his grip. He didn't say a word. He just walked past Izuku, shouldering him hard enough to make Izuku stumble. Kaken. Izuku whispered. Don't talk to me, Bakugo growled, low and dangerous. Just watch. The P grounds. The sun was high and unforgiving. The 19 students stood in a loose cluster, watching Aizawa explain the test. Softball throw. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. Endurance running. Grip strength. Upper body training. Seated toe touch. Sit-ups. Aizawa listed them off with bored indifference. You did these in middle school without quirks. Now you'll do them with quirks. This looks fun. Ashido cheered. Fun? Aizawa's eyes narrowed. You have 3 years to become a hero. You think the villains will care if you're having fun? Let's make this interesting. The student who ranks last in total points will be judged to have no potential, and will be instantly expelled. Expelled? The class chorused in horror. It's the first day. The world is unfair, Aizawa said. Natural disasters. Highway accidents. Rampaging villains. Heroes are the ones who correct that unfairness. If you wanted to hang out at McDonald's after school, you're in the wrong place. He turned his gaze to Izuku again. Bakugo finished first in the entrance exam, Aizawa said, though everyone knew the real star of the exam was standing a few feet away. How far could you throw in middle school? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Try it with your quirk. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He stretched his arms, a feral grin spreading across his face. He glanced back at Izuku for a split second, a look of pure challenge. Die! Die! Boom! The explosion was massive. The ball rocketed into the sky, leaving a trail of smoke. 705.2 meters, Aizawa read from his device. The class gasped. 700 meters? That's insane. It's a good start, Aizawa said. He looked at Izuku. Don't let the pressure get to you, Midoriya. The internet expects better than that from the next symbol, right? The taunt was subtle, but it landed. Izuku felt sweat trickle down his spine. He realized then that Aizawa didn't like him. Aizawa saw the fame, the hype, the cameras outside, and he hated it. He saw Izuku as a product, not a student. I have to prove him wrong. I have to use one for all. But as the tests began, reality set in. 50-meter dash. Ida, 3.04 seconds. Ajui, 5.58 seconds. Izuku lined up against Bakugo. If I use one for all in my legs, I'll break them. I can't walk to the next test if my legs are shattered. Start. Bakugo blasted forward, using explosions to propel himself. Izuku ran. Just ran. Bakugo, 4.13 seconds. Izuku, 7.02 seconds. He didn't use his quirk? Kaminari whispered. Maybe he's saving it? Grip strength. Shoji, 540 kilograms. Izuku squeezed the device until his knuckles turned white. Result, 56 kilograms. 56? Cyril blinked. I got more than that with my tape. Weird, Mineta muttered. The internet said he could crush a tank. Standing long jump. Aoyama used his laser to fly across the sandbox. Bakugo blasted over it. Izuku jumped. He landed in the sand. An average athletic jump? But compared to the others? Pathetic. The murmurs grew louder. Is he faking it? Did he pay someone to edit that video? Maybe his quirk has a recharge time? Like once a month? He looks so plain. Are we sure that video wasn't CGI? Izuku felt the doubt radiating from them. It was a physical weight. The admiration from the classroom was evaporating, replaced by skepticism. Even Uraraka looked confused, though she tried to smile encouragingly. And Bakugo? Bakugo was vibrating. Every time Izuku failed to use his power, Bakugo took it as a personal insult. You think I'm not worth it? You think you can look down on me? The ball throw. It was finally his turn. Izuku stood in the circle. The soft ball felt heavy in his hand. He was currently ranked last. He knew it. Even Mineta had used his balls for the sidesteps. Izuku was the only one performing at a quirkless level. If I don't do this, I'm expelled. Aizawa-sensei isn't bluffing. He looks ready to cut me loose right now. He looked at Aizawa. The teacher was watching him with cold, tired eyes. I have to use it. But I can't break my arm. Not the whole arm. Izuku took a breath. He remembered the feeling of the smash. The egg in the microwave. Just the arm. Adjust the power. He winded up. One for all surged. The red lightning crackled under his skin. He felt the power rush to his shoulder, his elbow, his wrist. Smash! He threw the ball. It flew 46 meters. Izuku blinked. His arm felt fine. The power had vanished the instant before release. What? Izuku stared at his hand. I erased your quirk. The voice was dry and irritated. Izuku turned. Aizawa's hair was floating, his eyes glowing red. The capture scarf was floating around him like a snake. That entrance exam was definitely not rational enough, Aizawa said, walking closer. Even a kid like you was accepted. You're the erasure hero, Eraserhead. Izuku gasped. Eraser? Never heard of him, someone whispered in the background. Aizawa ignored them. He stepped into Izuku's personal space, looming over him. I saw the video, Midoriya. The world saw it. They see a hero. Do you know what I see? Aizawa pointed a finger at Izuku's chest. I see a liability. I see a child who cannot control his power. A deck cannon that shatters the ship every time it fires. When you save someone, you break yourself. And who has to save you after that? The words cut deep. Fame doesn't save lives, Midoriya. Competence does. And right now, you are the most incompetent student in this class. Aizawa's eyes deactivated. His hair fell. I've returned your quirk. You have 2 throws left. Hurry up and get it over with. He turned and walked back to the safe zone. Izuku stood alone in the circle. The silence was deafening. He could feel the eyes of the class boring into his back. He's right. I can't control it. Everyone thinks I'm a god, but I'm just a broken vessel. Is he gonna cry? He's gonna be expelled, isn't he? What a letdown. The viral video was a lie. Izuku looked at the ball. If I give up, I lose one for all. I lose All Might's trust. I lose my dream. He closed his eyes. He thought about the beach. He thought about All Might's deflated form. He thought about the look on his mother's face when the reporters banged on the door. I am here. He didn't need to be the symbol yet. He just needed to be still standing. Don't break the arm. Focus. He wound up again. Aizawa watched, his finger on the trigger of his quirk. He has 0 potential. If he breaks his arm again, I'm expelling him immediately. Liability. Izuku stepped forward. The power surged. Not the arm. The energy flowed past his shoulder. Past his elbow. It pooled in the tip of his right index finger. Smash! At the exact moment of release, he snapped his finger. The shockwave was immediate. A boom echoed off the school walls. A gust of wind blasted back toward the class, whipping their hair and clothes. The ball vanished into the stratosphere. Izuku stood there, panting. His right index finger was purple, swollen, and unmistakably broken. It throbbed with a sickening heat. But the rest of his arm was fine. He wasn't on the ground. He turned to Aizawa, clutching his fist to his chest, trembling from the pain but standing tall. A challenge in his eyes. "Sensei." Izuku gritted his teeth, forcing a smile that was half grimace. I can still move." Aizawa's eyes widened slightly. The cynical boredom cracked. "Ho!" The device in his hand beeped. 705.3 meters. He beat Bakugo by 0.1 meters. Zero shouted. The class exploded. That was it. The shockwave. It wasn't a lie. His finger. Look at his finger. That looks so painful. Aizawa looked from the device to the boy. He focused the power into a single point to minimize the damage to his operational capacity. "It's crude, but it's not zero potential," Aizawa grinned. It was a terrifying expression. This kid. The explosion. Katsuki Bakugo stood frozen. His brain was short-circuiting. The number on the screen, 705.3, burned into his retinas. It wasn't just the power. It was the deception. He held back. In the dash. In the grip test. Deku had held back. He had been mocking Katsuki. Just like in the river when they were kids. Extending a hand to help, looking down on him from a height Katsuki couldn't reach. And now, the video was real. The power was real. The pebble was a boulder, and it was crushing him. "DKU!" The scream ripped from Bakugo's throat before he could stop it. He launched himself forward, explosions popping in his palms. The sheer animosity coming off him was palpable. "You bastard! Tell me how! You were quirkless. How did you do that?" Izuku cowered, the old fear response kicking in instantly. "Keikaken!" Bakugo was fast. He was going to take Izuku's head off. Thwip. A scarf wrapped around Bakugo, pinning his arms to his sides. The explosions died in a puff of smoke. "GHH. What is this cloth?" Bakugo struggled, trashing against the binding. "It's hard as steel. It's a capture weapon made of carbon fiber and a special metal alloy," Aizawa muttered, holding the other end of the scarf. His hair was floating again. "Geez. Don't make me use my quirk so much. I have dry eye." He glared at Bakugo. "We are not doing this. You're wasting time." Midoriya passed the throw. "Next test." Aizawa released the scarf. Bakugo stumbled forward, catching himself. He breathed heavily, glaring at Izuku with eyes that promised murder. "You're not a hero," Bakugo whispered, low enough that only Izuku could hear. "You're a fake. And I'm going to expose you." Bakugo turned and walked back to the group, but the damage was done. The class looked between the two boys. They saw the broken finger. They saw the raw, unchecked rage from Bakugo. They saw the fear in Izuku's eyes. This wasn't the triumphant debut of a golden boy. As Izuku walked back to the line, nursing his throbbing finger, he didn't feel famous. He felt exposed. "Are you okay?" Uraraka asked gently, hovering near him. "Your finger." "I'm fine," Izuku lied, his face pale. "That was intense," Kirishima said, looking at Bakugo, then back at Izuku. "You guys have some history, huh?" "Something like that," Izuku murmured. The verdict. The rest of the tests passed in a blur of pain. Izuku gritted his teeth through the sit-ups and the toe touch, his broken finger throbbing in time with his heartbeat. Finally, they gathered around Aizawa for the results. "I'm not going to verbally announce the scores," Aizawa said. "It's a waste of time. Look at the hologram." He pressed a button. A list appeared. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu. 2. Shoto Todoroki. 3. Katsuki Bakugo. 19. Minoru Mineta. 20. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku stared at his name at the bottom. Last. Despite the throw. Despite the pain. He was last. The world spun. "I'm expelled. It's over." The golden boy flunks out on day 1. He felt tears pricking his eyes. He waited for the words. "Get out." Aizawa dismissed the hologram. "By the way, the expulsion was a logical ruse." Silence. "Ha!" The class stared. "It was a deception to draw out your upper limits," Aizawa said with a creepy, wide grin. "What?" The class screamed in unison. "Of course it was a lie," Yaoyorozu sighed, hand on her chest. It was obvious if you thought about it. That was not obvious, Kaminari yelled. Izuku's knees gave out. He sank to the ground, the relief washing over him so hard he felt dizzy. I'm safe. I'm still here, Midoriya, Aizawa said. Izuku looked up. Aizawa wasn't smiling anymore. He handed Izuku a slip of paper. Go to recovery, girl. Get that fixed. Tomorrow, we start real training. Aizawa leaned down, his voice dropping to a whisper. Don't think you're safe, kid. You have power, but you're reckless. The media might love a glass idol, but in the field, glass breaks. If you can't fix that habit, I will expel you. Ruse or not, Aizawa walked away, leaving Izuku sitting in the dirt. As the class began to pack up, the whispers started again. But the tone had changed. He was last place. Even with that crazy throw? He's kinda unbalanced, isn't he? Yeah, huge power, but he breaks. Izuku stood up, clutching his referral slip. He looked at his hand. The image of the perfect, invincible hero the internet had created was gone. In its place was something messier. He wasn't a god. He was a boy with a broken finger and a target on his back. He walked toward the nurse's office, passing a window. Outside, past the gate, the news vans were still there. The cameras were waiting for him to come out. They want a show, Izuku thought, a hard resolve settling in his chest. I'll give them one. But it's going to be my story, not theirs. Evening, the faculty room. Aizawa sat at his desk, dripping eye drops into his eyes. So? All Might popped his head around the corner. He was in his small form, looking anxious. How was he? Did he shine? Aizawa spun his chair around. He's a problem, Tashinori. A problem? All Might flinched. He has zero control. He has a massive ego check coming his way. And that Bakugo kid wants to kill him. Aizawa sighed. But, he beat the expulsion cutoff, Aizawa admitted. He has guts. I'll give him that. But you need to do something about the media. Aizawa pointed to his computer screen. A new article was trending. UA first day leak. Did the Golden Boy crack? Sources say an explosion was heard on the UA grounds. Is Izuku Midoriya fighting other students already? They are going to eat him alive, Aizawa said. If you don't teach him how to handle the spotlight, the villains won't have to kill him. The pressure will do it for them. All Might looked at the screen, his expression grim. I know, All Might whispered. I know. The internet had a way of metabolizing tragedy and excreting content. In the days following the quirk apprehension test, the narrative around Izuku Midoriya had shifted yet again. The footage of his broken finger, snapped with the casual violence of a twig, had been slowed down, zoomed in on, and set to dramatic music. The initial skepticism regarding his zero potential had evaporated, replaced by a morbid fascination with his self-destruction. They called him the Glass Cannon. It was a nickname that sounded cool on a merchandise tag, but felt like a curse to the boy living it. It implied that his value lay in his ability to shatter. On the morning of the USJ rescue training, Izuku sat on the train, his hood pulled low. A group of salarymen across the aisle were watching a news segment on their phones. The audio drifted over. Critics are asking if UA is behaving ethically. Is Midoriya's quirk a danger to himself? Or is this the ultimate form of self-sacrifice? A hero who breaks so we don't have to. Izuku shrank into his seat. Self-sacrifice. It was a noble term for I don't know how to use my powers without exploding. He looked at his right hand. The finger was healed, thanks to Recovery Girl, but the phantom throb remained. He was walking into school every day not just as a student, but as a biological weapon that everyone was waiting to see detonate. UA High Class 1A. Deciding the class representative is a serious matter. Tenya Ida announced, his arms chopping the air with mechanical precision. It requires trust, leadership, and a pristine record. The class was in chaos. Everyone wanted the role. But as hands shot up, eyes inevitably drifted toward the green-haired boy in the middle row. Midoriya should do it, Ashido shouted. He's the most famous guy in school. Imagine the publicity. Yeah, Kaminari agreed. If the Glass Cannon is our rep, the other classes won't mess with us. They'll be too scared he'll blow the roof off. Izuku waved his hands frantically. No! I mean, I really don't think I'm suited. I agree, a cold voice cut through the noise. Shoto Todoroki spoke from the back of the room. The position requires stability. Midoriya draws too much attention. If he's the rep, the press will never leave us alone. We're here to learn, not to be background dancers for his reality show. The room went quiet. It was harsh, but undeniable. TCH. Bakugo kicked his desk. I don't care who does it, as long as it's not the nerd. In the end, the vote was split. Izuku had 3 votes, likely Uraraka, Ida, and himself, but he promptly resigned in favor of Ada after the lunch rush incident. A moment where Ida calmed the panic with authority while Izuku was being mobbed by students asking for autographs. It is for the best, Aizawa muttered from his sleeping bag as they prepared to board the bus. We have enough distractions. Aizawa looked tired. More tired than usual. The security breach at the gate 2 days ago, the one the press had caused, had put the entire staff on edge. They were swimming in a fishbowl, and the sharks were tapping on the glass. The bus ride. The bus to the unforeseen simulation joint USJ was open plan, encouraging conversation. Izuku sat near the back, hoping to fade into the upholstery. Midoriya-chan, Tsuyu Azui said, placing a finger on her chin. She was sitting directly across from him. Her large, observant eyes bore into him. Why yes, Azui-san? Call me Tsuyu. I'm a blunt person. I say what's on my mind. Izuku swallowed. Okay, Tsuyu-chan. Your quirk is a lot like All Might's. The bus went silent. The idle chatter about costumes and ultimate moves died instantly. This was the question everyone had danced around, the elephant in the room that had been growing since the viral video. Wait, really? Izuku stammered, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. I mean, maybe a little. But All Might doesn't. He doesn't break his bones when he punches. So it's totally different. Ha ha, that's true, Kirishima chimed in, leaning forward. All Might is invincible. You get hurt. But the sheer power output is the same. That wind pressure during the exam? That was nuts. Maybe he's All Might's secret love child, Todoroki said quietly. Izuku choked on his own saliva. No. Definitely not. It would explain the media circus, Aoyama added, sparkling. The press smells a dynasty. They want to crown the prince. It's not like that. Izuku insisted, desperate to shift the narrative. I was a late bloomer. My quirk is just volatile. Whatever it is, Bakugo growled from the front seat, not turning around. It's borrowed time. A quirk that breaks its user is trash. Once you run out of bones to break, you're just a pebble again. The cruelty of the statement hung in the air, but no one countered it. Because deep down, they all worried he was right. The USJ, the unforeseen simulation joint, was a marvel of engineering. A massive dome housing shipwrecks, landslides, fires, and squalls. 13, the space hero, stood at the top of the stairs, looking like a friendly astronaut. Welcome! 13 spread their arms. Here you will learn how to use your quirks to save, not just to fight. Because in the real world, power without control is just danger. 13's eyes lingered on Izuku for a split second. Control. Let's get inside, Aizawa said, moving to guide the class. Zzrt. The lights in the massive dome flickered. A low, electrical hum vibrated through the floor. The fountain in the central plaza sputtered and died. What's that? Kirishima pointed toward the center of the facility. Is this part of the training? Like a scenario? In the middle of the plaza, space was tearing itself apart. A swirling vortex of purple mist expanded, growing wider and wider. From the darkness, a hand emerged, pale, thin, and covered in what looked like a severed hand gripping its face. Then, a man stepped out. He was followed by another. And another. Dozens of warped, rugged figures poured out of the mist like cockroaches spilling from a crack in the wall. Stay back! Aizawa shouted, his voice snapping into combat mode. He threw his arm out to bar the students. Put your masks on. This isn't a drill. Izuku froze. The dread he felt wasn't the academic anxiety of a test. This was primal. It was the smell of ozone and killing intent. Villains? Mineta shrieked. Here? In a school? That's impossible. The sensors didn't trip, Momo noted, her voice trembling. They must have someone with a jamming quirk. Down in the plaza, the man with the hands covering his body, Tamura Shigaraki, scratched his neck violently. He looked up at the students, squinting through the fingers of the hand on his face. 13. Eraserhead. Shigaraki's voice rasped, amplified by the acoustics of the dome. The teacher schedule we received said All Might was supposed to be here. He sighed, a sound of profound disappointment. We went through so much trouble to gather this crowd. Has he retired already? Beside him, the mist being, Kurojairi, narrowed his yellow eyes. He is not here. Perhaps the schedule was altered, whatever, Shigaraki muttered. He turned his gaze upward again. He wasn't looking at Aizawa. He wasn't looking at 13. He was looking directly at Izuku. Izuku felt the gaze like a physical touch. It was cold, slimy, and filled with a terrifying recognition. But we have a consolation prize, Shigaraki said, his voice rising with manic glee. He pointed a decaying finger at the top of the stairs. The glass cannon is here. The villains behind him, thugs, murderers, and mercenaries, looked up. That's him. One shouted. The viral kid. 50 million yen on the black market for his quirk info. Let's break him. The blood drained from Izuku's face. They know me, Izuku whispered. Midoriya! Aizawa barked. Get back! 13. Evacuate the students. Try to contact the school. Aizawa didn't wait. He leaped down the stairs, his capture weapon flying, engaging 3 villains at once. Sensei! Izuku yelled. Run! Ida grabbed Izuku's shoulder. We have to go. The class turned to the exit, sprinting for the heavy steel doors. But the purple mist was faster. Kurojairi materialized in front of them, blocking the path. I'm afraid I can't let you do that, the mist said politely. We are the League of Villains. We have come to extinguish the symbol of peace. But since he is absent, we will take the liberty of extinguishing his heir first. Heir? Bakugo froze. What the hell are you talking about? The boy Kurojairi said, the mist swirling around him. The one the world is watching. If we break him, we break the hope of the next generation. Not on my watch. Kirishima and Bakugo lunged simultaneously, explosions and hardened fists tearing through the mist. Bet that hurt, you gaseous bastard. Bakugo smirked. Close, Kurojairi said. But not quite. The mist expanded, enveloping the class. Scatter. The world turned purple. Izuku felt weightlessness, then the sensation of falling. The shipwreck zone. Splash. Izuku hit the water hard. The cold shock forced the air from his lungs. He thrashed, disoriented, realizing he was submerged in deep water. He kicked toward the surface, gasping as he broke the waterline. He was in the shipwreck zone, a massive artificial lake with a sinking cruise liner in the center. Midoriya-chan. A long tongue wrapped around his waist and yanked him into the air. Tsuyu Ajiri deposited him onto the deck of the ship. Mineta was already there, shivering and crying. We're gonna die. Mineta wailed. We're gonna die. Did you hear them? They want you. They're gonna torture us to get to you. Quiet, Mineta. Izuku hissed, crawling to the railing to peer over. Below, in the water, a dozen villains were circling the ship. They weren't attacking yet. They were waiting. Come out, glass boy. One of them shouted, a shark-like villain with rows of serrated teeth. We know you're up there. Come down and we'll make it quick. Or stay up there and we'll sink the boat. This is bad, Tsuyu said, her usual calm cracking slightly. They have the advantage in the water. And they are specifically targeting you, Midoriya-chan. Izuku gripped the railing. The metal groaned under his hand. It's my fault. The thought was invasive and toxic. Because I couldn't stay hidden. Because I'm famous. They aren't just attacking Yue, they're hunting me. And Tsuyu and Mineta are caught in the crossfire. I have to draw them away, Izuku said, standing up. Are you crazy? Mineta grabbed his leg. You can't fight them. You break your bones just by breathing. If you fight them, you'll be useless. If I don't, they'll kill you both. Izuku snapped. He looked at his hand. He had the finger flick. The Delaware smash. But he couldn't just use it blindly. He needed a plan. Tsuyu-chan, what's your quirk's limit? I can jump, stick to walls, and use my tongue. I'm strong in the water, but there are too many of them. Mineta, your spheres? They stick to anything but me. But what good does that do? Izuku's mind raced. He analyzed the villains. They were confident. They were clustered together, waiting for the prey to fall. I have an idea, Izuku said, his eyes narrowing. But it's going to hurt. You're going to break something again, aren't you? Tsuyu asked. I have to, Izuku said. It's the only weapon I have. He stepped to the edge of the ship. The villains cheered seeing him. There he is! The golden boy. Hey! Izuku shouted, his voice cracking but loud. You want me? Come get me! He held up his right hand. He tucked his middle finger behind his thumb. One for all. 100%. Mineta! Throw your balls into the water. Now! Mineta screamed and started chucking the purple spheres over the side like grenades. The villains laughed, dodging the seemingly harmless objects. Is that it? Sticky balls? The shark villain sneered. Tsuyu, grab me and Mineta and jump. Ribbit. Tsuyu wrapped them up and launched into the air. As they left the deck, Izuku aimed his finger not at the villains, but at the water in the center of their formation, Delaware. Smash! He flicked. The pain was instantaneous. His thumb shattered. The force was like a cannon shot. The wind pressure hit the water, displacing tons of liquid in a fraction of a second. The lake erupted. A massive whirlpool formed, the sheer kinetic energy forcing the water to swirl violently toward the center. What the? The villains were sucked in. The water churned, dragging them together. And as they collided, Mineta's sticky spheres, floating in the chaos, bound them together. It was a ball of flailing limbs and villains, trapped by their own environment. We did it! Mineta cried as Tsuyu landed them in the shallow water near the shore. Izuku clutched his hand. His thumb was purple and swollen, hanging at a wrong angle. The pain was blinding, white-hot needles stabbing up his arm. Midoriya-chan, are you okay? I'm fine, Izuku gasped, sweat pouring down his face. We have to get to Aizawa-sensei. We have to help. They waded to the shore of the shipwreck zone. They were near the central plaza. Izuku peeked over the concrete embankment. What he saw stopped his heart. Aizawa was losing. The Erasure hero was battered. His elbow was bent backward. His face was slammed into the concrete by a monstrous, bird-brained creature with exposed muscle, the Noma. And standing over Aizawa was Shigaraki. So cool, Shigaraki whispered, looking at Aizawa's broken form. You're so cool, Eraserhead. But you're not the main event. Shigaraki turned. He looked straight at the embankment where Izuku was hiding. Found you. The central plaza. Before Tsuyu could jump, before Izuku could react, the Noma moved. It was a blur of black muscle. One moment it was crushing Aizawa, the next it was in front of them. The wind from its movement alone knocked Mineta backward. Run! Izuku screamed. He shoved Tsuyu aside just as the Noma's massive fist came down. Crack! The concrete where they had been standing shattered. Izuku rolled, scrambling to his feet. Don't kill him yet, Nomu, Shigaraki's voice drifted over. Break him first. The cameras aren't rolling, but I want to hear him scream. The Nomu grabbed Izuku by the head. It lifted him off the ground effortlessly. Izuku kicked, clawed, and struck at the creature's arm, but it was like hitting a steel beam wrapped in rubber. Let him go! Tsuyu lashed out with her tongue, wrapping it around Izuku's waist to pull him free. Shigaraki appeared next to her. He didn't touch her. He just hovered his hand inches from her face. Don't interrupt the show, frog, Shigaraki hissed. Or I'll turn you to dust. Tsuyu froze, terror locking her muscles. Shigaraki turned his attention back to Izuku, who was dangling in the Noma's grip. Izuku Midoriya, Shigaraki said, tilting his head. The internet loves you. They say you have the heart of a hero. They say you're willing to sacrifice everything. Shigaraki walked closer. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. A wireless microphone. He tapped it. The sound echoed through the massive PA system of the USJ. Thump. Thump. Testing, Shigaraki said. His voice boomed through the landslide zone, the fire zone, the ruins. Every student, Every villain could hear him. Attention, students of UA, Shigaraki announced pleasantly. We have your celebrity. We have the golden boy. In the mountain zone, Momo and Jiro froze. In the ruins, Bakugo and Kirishima stopped fighting. Let him go! Bakugo roared at the ceiling speakers. He's a symbol, isn't he? Shigaraki continued, walking around the dangling Izuku. A symbol of hope? Let's see how much hope he has left. Shigaraki pointed at Izuku's left arm, the uninjured one. Noma. The arm. The Noma didn't hesitate. It gripped Izuku's left forearm with its free hand. Izuku's eyes widened. No. Wait, please. Snap. The sound was amplified by the microphone. It was a wet, sickening crunch of bone giving way. Eh! Izuku's scream tore through the facility. It wasn't a hero's battle cry. It was the raw, guttural shriek of a child in agony. The sound paralyzed the students in the other zones. Uraraka covered her mouth, tears springing to her eyes. Jiro dropped her earphone jacks, clutching her head. Did you hear that? Shigaraki asked the microphone. That's the sound of your savior. He breaks so easily. Izuku hung limp, sobbing, his left arm dangling uselessly, his right thumb shattered. The pain was overwhelming. He was drifting in and out of consciousness. Why? Izuku wheezed. Why are you doing this? Because I hate you, Shigaraki said softly, leaning in close. I hate that they look at you and see hope. You're just a glitch. A fake. And I'm going to expose you, he signaled the Noma. The leg. No! Izuku screamed. He couldn't take it. He was going to die here. Not fighting. Not saving anyone. Just being tortured as a prop for a villain's manifesto. Think. The Noma reached for his leg. Izuku looked at Tsuyu. She was crying, helpless. I am here. The words echoed in his head. Faint. Distant. I am here. Izuku gritted his teeth. The pain sharpened his focus into a razor edge. One for all. 100%. Not in his arm. Not in his leg. He focused the energy into his neck. Into his head. As the Noma leaned in to grab his leg, Izuku swung his body. He headbutted the Noma. It was ridiculous. A boy headbutting a monster that could tank All Might's punches. But Izuku didn't aim for the brain. He aimed for the eye. Smash! The impact cracked Izuku's skull. Blood poured down his face immediately. But the force drove the Noma's head back. The creature screeched, a horrible, bird-like sound, and dropped him. Izuku hit the concrete. He couldn't stand. Both arms were broken, one by Nomu, one thumb by himself. His head was swimming. You! Shigaraki scratched his neck furiously, drawing blood. You pest. You annoying little. I won't. Izuku choked out, trying to push himself up with his elbows, failing, and collapsing again. He spat blood. I won't let you win. He looked into the camera of the drone hovering above, one the villains had brought to record the execution. Izuku smiled. It was a broken, bloody, terrifying smile. Teeth stained red. Eyes manic with pain. But it was a smile. I am still here, Shigaraki screamed in frustration. Kill him. Annoy you. Crush him. The Noma recovered. It raised both fists, a hammer blow meant to turn Izuku Midoriya into paste. Izuku closed his eyes. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, All Might. The entrance. Boom. The heavy steel doors at the top of the stairs didn't open. They exploded off their hinges. The smoke cleared instantly. Standing there was not a man. It was a force of nature. All Might had arrived. But he wasn't smiling. There was no I am here. There was no pose. All Might's face was a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. His eyes were shadowed, glowing with blue electric rage. He had stripped off his tie. His white shirt was straining against his muscles. He took in the scene in a microsecond. Aizawa broken, the students scattered, and Izuku, bloody, broken, lying on the ground beneath a monster. I apologize, All Might said. His voice wasn't loud. It was low, vibrating with a terrifying bass that shook the glass of the dome. I apologize for being late. He vanished. He moved so fast the eye couldn't track him. The Noma's fists were inches from Izuku's face. Smash! The Noma was blasted sideways. It didn't just fly. It ricocheted off the ground, skipped like a stone, and slammed into the far wall of the dome, creating a crater the size of a truck. All Might stood over Izuku. He gently picked the boy up. All Might? Izuku whispered, his vision fading. I've got you, young Midoriya, All Might said, his voice trembling with suppressed emotion. You did well. You held on. I am so proud of you. He laid Izuku next to Tsuyu and Mineta. Take him, All Might commanded. Get him to the entrance. Now. Yes, sir. Mineta wept, dragging Izuku by his uniform. All Might turned to Shigaraki. Shigaraki was trembling. Not with fear, but with excitement. He's here. The final boss. But look at him. He's angry. You, All Might said, pointing at Shigaraki. The air pressure from the gesture alone cracked the floor tiles. You touched my students. You tortured a child to make a statement. All Might stepped forward. You wanted to break him? You wanted to show the world he was weak? All Might ripped his jacket off. You only proved that he has the spirit of a true hero. And now, you will face the consequences. The aftermath. The battle that followed was legendary. All Might versus Noma. A clash of titans that shook the foundation of UA. But for Izuku, it was a fading dream. He was carried up the stairs by Tsuyu and Mineta. He heard the shockwaves. He felt the heat. By the time the other heroes arrived, Snipe, Cementos, Midnight, Izuku was unconscious. When the police secured the scene, and the paramedics arrived, the press was waiting outside the USJ. They had seen the smoke. They heard the rumors. As Izuku was wheeled out on a stretcher, an oxygen mask over his face, his arms in splints, the cameras went wild. They zoomed in on his face. The blood. The brokenness. But they also saw the footage that had been leaked from the villain's drone, the smile. That bloody, defiant smile before the end. The narrative shifted again. He wasn't just a glass cannon anymore. He wasn't just a celebrity. As the ambulance doors closed, blocking out the flashing lights, a new caption began to trend on the news ticker. The martyr of UA. Izuku had survived the target on his back, but the target had only grown larger. And now, the villains knew exactly where to hit. The beep of the heart monitor was rhythmic, steady, and utterly infuriating. To Izuku Midoriya, lying in the sterile white bed of the Musutafu General Hospital, the sound was a metronome counting down the seconds of his wasted time. Every beep was a reminder. You are here. You are broken. You are the story. It had been 3 days since the USJ incident. 3 days since Shigaraki had snapped his arm like a dry twig. 3 days since his scream had been broadcast over the facility's PA system and subsequently leaked to the dark web by a villain's drone. Izuku stared at his arms. They were encased in heavy plaster casts, elevated on slings. His left leg was in a boot. He felt heavy, not just from the painkillers drifting through his fore, but from the sheer crushing weight of the world's attention. The television mounted on the wall was mute, but the caption screamed loud enough. Hero News Network, the martyr of UA. Footage plays of Izuku being wheeled into the ambulance, his face bloody but smiling. Scrolling ticker, stock prices for support item companies surge. Debate over UA security protocols continues. Who is the boy who breaks? The door to his room slid open with a soft hiss. Izuku flinched, expecting another nurse with a camera phone they thought they were hiding, or a doctor asking for an autograph for his niece. Instead, it was his mother. Inko Midoriya looked as though she had aged 10 years in 3 days. Her eyes were swollen, red-rimmed craters of anxiety. She carried a plastic convenience store bag, but she held it like it contained radioactive waste. Izuku, she whispered, rushing to his side, hovering her hands over his casts as if afraid to touch him. How is the pain? Did the doctor come by? Did you eat the apple slices? I'm okay, Mom, Izuku said, his voice raspy. Really? The pain it's manageable. Inko sank into the chair beside the bed, letting out a shuddering breath. She placed the plastic bag on the bedside table. It crinkled loudly in the silence. I stopped at the store on the way here, Inko said, her voice trembling. I needed to get some water. And I saw this. She reached into the bag and pulled out a small object. Izuku stared. It was a keychain. a cheap, plastic keychain. It depicted a cartoonish boy with messy green hair and a UA gym uniform. The figure's arms were wrapped in bandages. One eye was swollen shut, and when Inko squeezed it, a little red LED light in the figure's chest, where its heart would be, flashed rapidly. They were at the counter, Inko whispered, horrifying tears welling in her eyes. Right next to the gum. They called it the battle-damaged Deku charm. Izuku felt the bile rise in his throat. He looked at the plastic caricature of his own suffering. It was cute. It was stylized. It turned his agony into an aesthetic. It cost 500 yen, Inko sobbed, burying her face in her hands. My son's pain is worth 500 yen. Izuku stared at the flashing red light of the keychain. Thump. 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 I'm sorry, Mom, Izuku said, turning his head away from the toy. I'm so sorry. 2 weeks later, the commute. Returning to school was supposed to be a triumph. In a normal hero story, the protagonist returns from the hospital with a cool scar and a newfound resolve, greeted by cheering friends. For Izuku, it was a walk through a hall of mirrors. His arms were out of the heavy casts, replaced by high-tech compression sleeves developed by UA's support course, specifically designed to hold his bones together if he decided to shatter them again. They were black, sleek, and unfortunately, instantly iconic. He walked from the train station to UA, head down, hood up. The streets of Mizurufa had changed. Before, there were All Might posters. Now, nestled between the All Might displays, there was green. He passed the newsstand. The cover of Hero Weekly featured a high-resolution still from the USJ's security footage, All Might standing over him. The headline, The Fallen Angel and the God. He passed a clothing store. In the window, a mannequin wore a green tracksuit with glass printed in bold white letters across the chest. Hey, look! It's him! Izuku froze. A group of middle schoolers pointed at him from across the street. It's the glass cannon! Check out the sleeves! They look just like the ones in the magazine. Hey, Midoriya! Break something for us. Izuku walked faster. He didn't run. Running drew attention. But he power walked, his heart hammering against his ribs. They don't see me, he thought, clutching his bag strap. They see a content creator. They see a stuntman. He turned the corner toward the UA barrier, hoping for sanctuary. Instead, he found the vultures. The press was still there, though thinner in numbers than the first day. But what replaced the reporters were the vendors. Illegal stalls had set up shop just outside the UA jurisdiction line. Get your glass cannon merch here! A man with a gravelly voice shouted. He was holding up a t-shirt. It featured a graphic drawing of a skeleton with green hair, its bones cracking. Limited edition USJ survivor bandages. Another vendor yelled, waving rolls of medical gauze stamped with Izuku's face. Izuku stopped. He couldn't help it. The sheer absurdity of it rooted him to the spot. A young girl, maybe 10 years old, was tugging on her mother's sleeve near the stall. Mommy, I want the plushie. The girl whined. The vendor grinned, a shark sensing blood, and held up a plush doll. It was Izuku. But it had X's for eyes and removable Velcro arms. It teaches anatomy. The vendor pitched. You can rip his arms off and put them back on. Just like the real thing. Okay, sweetie, the mother sighed, handing over cash. But don't lose the pieces. Izuku watched as the little girl hugged the doll, ripping its left arm off with a wet rich sound of Velcro. She giggled. Something inside Izuku cracked. Not a bone this time, but something more structural in his psyche. He turned and bolted for the gate, flashing his ID card with trembling hands. As the barrier closed behind him, shutting out the noise of the vendors, he leaned against the steel wall and dry heaved. He wasn't a hero. He was a meme. Class 1A, the locker room. The sanctuary of the classroom was a lie. The UE locker room, usually a place of camaraderie and gross Axe body spray, felt like a pressure cooker. Izuku changed into his gym uniform in the corner, keeping his back to the room. He didn't want them to see the compression sleeves. He didn't want them to see the fresh, pink surgical scars that ran up his forearms like lightning bolts. Man, must be nice, a voice echoed off the metal lockers. Izuku paused. Denki Kaminari was leaning against the bench, pulling on his socks. He wasn't looking at Izuku, but the comment was directed at the air around him. What's nice? Kirishima asked, slamming his locker shut. To be famous, Kaminari shrugged. I mean, look at us. We all fought villains at the USJ. I fried my brain short-circuiting a whole squad. You and Bakugo took down the warp guy. But who gets the cover of Teen Hero? Midoriya. He got tortured, dude, Zero pointed out, looking uncomfortable. His arm was snapped backwards. I don't think that's nice. Yeah, but chicks dig scars, Kaminari countered, though his tone was bitter. I saw the forums. There's a Protect Midoriya fan club with like 50,000 members. I barely have 50 followers on Twitter. Stop it, Kaminari, Ojiro said quietly. It's not a competition, isn't it? Mineta chimed in, struggling to pull his pants up. We're here to be top heroes. Popularity is part of the ranking. Midoriya is basically a pro already in the popularity polls. He's skipping the line because he gets hurt. Izuku pulled his gym shirt on, the fabric scratching against his sensitive skin. He wanted to say something. He wanted to scream that he would trade the fan club and the magazine covers in a heartbeat for a quirk that didn't destroy him. He wanted to tell them about the nightmares where the Noma's hand was his own hand, crushing his own throat. But he stayed silent. Because they were right. He was skipping the line. He hadn't earned this attention through skill. He had earned it through spectacle. Shut up, dunce face. The room went cold. Katsuki Bakugo stood by the door. He was fully dressed, his gauntlets resting on the bench. He wasn't looking at Kaminari. He was staring at the back of Izuku's head. You think being a victim makes you a hero? Bakugo scoffed. He walked toward Izuku, the heavy thud of his boots silencing the room. He stopped right behind Izuku. They're selling dolls of you outside, Bakugo said. His voice was dangerously low. I saw them. Pathetic little toys with broken arms. Izuku turned slowly. Bakugo's red eyes were burning with a complex mix of rage and something else. Disgust? Fear? I didn't ask for them to make those, Kaken, Izuku whispered. It doesn't matter what you asked for, Bakugo spat. It's what you are. You're a circus act. A freak show. And every time you break a bone on camera, you make the rest of us look like extras in your tragedy. Bakugo leaned in, his breath hot on Izuku's face. A quirk that hurts you is trash. But a hero who relies on pity to get ahead? That's worse than trash. That's a villain in a cape. Bakugo shoved past him, shouldering Izuku hard enough to make him stumble into the lockers. Don't get in my way at the sports festival, Bakugo called out as he exited. I'm going to show the world the difference between a victim and a victor. The door slammed shut. The silence in the locker room was thick. Don't listen to him, Midoriya, Kirishima said, breaking the tension. He walked over and patted Izuku on the shoulder, carefully avoiding the injured arm. He's just jealous. We all know you stepped up when it mattered. Yeah, Izuku said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Thanks, Kirishima-kun. But Kaminari's words and Bakugo's venom swirled in his mind. Pity. Circus act. Skipping the line. Was that all he was? A tragedy for public consumption? The hallway fire and ice. The path to the cafeteria was blocked. Izuku had stayed behind in the classroom during lunch to avoid the stairs in the mess hall. He ate a nutrient jelly pouch alone at his desk, reading a textbook on quirk theory. When he finally ventured out to use the restroom, he found his path barred. Shoto Todoroki was leaning against the wall, waiting. The dual-haired boy was an enigma. He was the son of Endeavor, the number 2 hero. He was talented, powerful, and icy cold. He rarely spoke to anyone. Midoriya, Todoroki said. It wasn't a greeting, it was a summons. Todoroki-kun? Izuku stopped. Do you need something? Todoroki pushed off the wall. He walked toward Izuku with the grace of a predator. He stopped a few feet away, his heterochromatic eyes scanning Izuku up and down, lingering on the compression sleeves. I watched the video of the USJ, Todoroki said. I watched the entrance exam again. And I watched the news report from yesterday about your merchandise sales outpacing some top 50 heroes. I can't control the sales, Izuku said defensively. My father is obsessed with you, Todoroki said flatly. Izuku blinked. Endeavor? Why? Because you disrupted the hierarchy, Todoroki said. You appeared out of nowhere. A boy with a quirk that destroys his body, yet produces force equal to All Might. And instantly the media crowns you the next symbol. Todoroki took a step closer. The air around his right side felt oddly cold. My father has spent his entire life trying to surpass All Might. He couldn't do it. So he created me. A hybrid quirk designed to exceed the number 1. Izuku felt a chill run down his spine. Created? But you. Todoroki narrowed his eyes. You are different. You aren't a natural prodigy. You hurt yourself. It's almost artificial. Like a vessel that can't contain the liquid poured into it. Todoroki looked Izuku dead in the eye. Are you All Might's secret love child? Izuku choked. What? No. I told you guys on the bus. Or, Todoroki interrupted, his voice dropping an octave, are you something else? A project? Did All Might create you, not biologically, but strategically? Did he pick a quirkless nobody and pump him full of drugs or support tech to create a media darling? That's not true. Izuku shouted. I've worked hard. I trained for 10 months just to. 10 months? Todoroki seized on the number. You trained for 10 months to gain power that rivals the number 1? I have trained since I was 5 years old, suffering every single day, and I am still chasing him. Todoroki's face twisted into a scowl of quiet fury. It feels like a marketing stunt, Midoriya. The poor, broken boy. The underdog. The world loves a tragedy. Did All Might set this up? Is your pain just part of the script to keep his agency relevant? Izuku clenched his fists. The accusation was absurd, yet it hurt more than Bakugo's insults. Bakugo thought he was weak. Todoroki thought he was fake. I am not a script, Izuku said, his voice trembling but firm. And All Might, he's not like that. My power, it's mine. And the pain is mine. I don't want the fame, Todoroki-kun. I'd give it all back if I could just save people without breaking. Todoroki stared at him for a long moment. The ice in his gaze didn't melt. We'll see, Todoroki said, turning away. The sports festival is coming up. There are no villains there. No life or death stakes to generate pity points. Just combat. I will expose you, Midoriya. I will show the world that a fragile idol cannot stand against true power. He walked away, leaving Izuku alone in the hallway. Izuku slumped against the wall. Expose me. Everyone wanted to expose him. Bakugo. Todoroki. Shigaraki. They all wanted to peel back the layers of the glass cannon and prove there was nothing inside but broken glass. The faculty lounge. He's a liability. Shota Aizawa slammed a stack of papers onto the coffee table. Look at these requests, Nizu. Look at them. Good Morning Musitifu wants an interview. Hero Vogue wants a photo shoot. A documentary crew is asking for permission to film his commute. Principal Nizu sat on the leather sofa, sipping tea from a saucer. His beady black eyes were unreadable. It is certainly unprecedented, Nizu chirped. It's dangerous, Aizawa growled. The USJ proved it. Shigaraki didn't just attack UA, he attacked Midoriya. He broadcasted his torture. Why? To demoralize society. To show that the next symbol is made of porcelain. Aizawa pointed a finger at All Might, who was sitting in the corner, hunched over in his skeletal form. You did this, All Might. You chose a successor who wasn't ready, and you let him walk into the spotlight before he could even crawl. All Might didn't look up. His large hands were clasped together, squeezing until the knuckles turned white. I know, All Might rasped. We should expel him, Aizawa said. The room went silent. Midnight and Cementos looked at Aizawa in shock. Eraser. Midnight gasped. You can't be serious. The boy saved his classmates. He has potential. He has a target on his back the size of Tokyo. Aizawa yelled. Keeping him here endangers the other students. If the villains want him this bad, they will tear this school apart to get him. Expelling him, putting him in protective custody or hiding him, is the logical move to save his life. No. All Might stood up. He was still in his skinny form, but his presence filled the room. We cannot hide him, All Might said. Not anymore. Why not? Aizawa challenged. Because it would hurt your PR? Because All for One is watching, All Might said. The name sucked the air out of the room. Aizawa stiffened. The symbol of evil? Nisa asked quietly. Shigaraki is his disciple, All Might explained. Which means he knows. He knows Izuku is important. If we expel him, if we send him into hiding, All for One will find him. And without Yue's protection, without my protection, he will kill the boy and take the power. All Might walked to the window, looking out at the campus. The cat is out of the bag, Aizawa-kun. We cannot put it back. Izuku is famous. He is an icon. We cannot change that. All Might turned back, his blue eyes burning with a desperate intensity. So we must do the only thing left. We must make the reality match the myth. We must make him strong enough to survive the fame. Aizawa stared at All Might for a long moment. Then, he sighed, rubbing his temples. You better work him to the bone, All Might. Because if he breaks again, there might not be enough pieces left to put back together. Delta ground, concrete and bone. The industrial district of the UA simulation grounds was a maze of concrete pillars, pipes, and steel girders. It was ugly, hard, and unforgiving. I'm sorry, young Midoriya. Izuku stood in the center of a clearing, wearing his gym uniform. All Might stood opposite him, buffed up into his hero form. Sorry for what? Izuku asked, stretching his soreness away. For everything, All Might said. I thought we had time. I thought you could enjoy your youth a little longer. I thought we could keep One for All a secret until your 3rd year. All Might clenched his fist. But the world is cruel. They have put you on a pedestal, and the villains are sawing at the base. I cannot stop the cameras. I cannot stop the merchandise. I cannot stop the expectations. All Might looked up, his signature smile gone. In its place was the face of a warrior who had fought for 40 years. So, I must stop coddling you. No more beach cleanup. No more basic strength training. All Might vanished. Whoosh. He appeared directly in front of Izuku. His fist stopped an inch from Izuku's nose. The wind pressure knocked Izuku onto his back. From this moment on, All Might boomed, we are at war. You must learn to fight without breaking. You must learn to move. You must learn to predict. Izuku scrambled to his feet, terrified. All Might? Come at me! All Might shouted. Don't use 100%. Use 5%. Use 1%. I don't care. But if you break a bone today, I will fail you myself. The glass cannon dies today, Midoriya. You must become steel. Izuku looked at his idol. He saw the desperation in All Might's eyes. This wasn't just training, this was panic management. All Might was terrified that his successor was going to die. Izuku gritted his teeth. He felt the hum of One for All deep in his chest. He's right. I can't be a victim anymore. I can't be the boy with the bandaged keychain. Yes, sir, Izuku charged. He didn't use 100%. He tried to dial it back. He felt the egg in the microwave. Don't explode. Just heat up. He threw a punch. It was weak. It was sloppy. All Might caught it with a single finger. Again. All Might roared, throwing him into a pile of cement bags. Faster. Smarter. The cameras are watching Izuku. Give them a hero, not a corpse. The reflection. That night, Izuku returned home battered and bruised, but unbroken. The training had been hell. He had welts on his back, scrapes on his knees, and his muscles felt like jelly. But his bones were intact. He walked into his bedroom and collapsed onto his chair. His room was a shrine to All Might. Posters, figures, bedsheets. It had always been his sanctuary, but now, sitting on his desk, was a small cardboard box. It had no return address. Inko must have brought it in, thinking it was from Ye. Izuku opened it. Inside was a collection of letters. Fan mail. He picked one up. The handwriting was shaky, childish. Dear Deku, I saw you on TV. The bad man hurt you, but you smiled. I have a quirk that hurts me too. My skin burns when I use it. Everyone says I can't be a hero. But I saw you break your arms and keep fighting. If you can do it, maybe I can too. Please don't die. Kenji, age 8. Izuku stared at the letter. He reached into the box and pulled out another item. It was a homemade drawing. It showed Izuku, drawn in crayon, standing tall. He wasn't broken in the picture. He was holding up a building. The caption read, "My hero." Izuku looked up at his reflection in the mirror on his closet door. He saw the dark circles under his eyes. He saw the scar on his forehead from the Noma. He saw the doubt. But for the first time since the exam, he didn't just see a victim. Bakugo called him a circus act. Todoroki called him a fake. The media called him a glass cannon. The villains called him a target. But Kenji Age 8 called him hope. Izuku pinned the letter to his wall, right next to his All Might calendar. "I won't die, Kenji," Izuku whispered to the empty room. "I promise." He looked at the calendar. The sports festival was 2 weeks away. The world was going to be watching. They wanted to see if the glass cannon would shatter again. They wanted the spectacle of his pain. "I won't give it to them," Izuku vowed, clenching his fist. The green lightning of One for All sparked faintly around his hand, controlled, steady. "I'm going to win, and I'm going to do it without breaking a single bone." The glass idol was about to enter the arena. But he was done being fragile.